Someone says, "What's the future?" Vaughn Coleman.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to yet another episode of Vaughn Coleman Presents, our 53rd episode, and second episode today. Third one this week in 2 days. It's really funny. Luke Stone just tweeted out, does anyone feel like they've worked a whole week in 2 days? I feel like I worked a whole week today. It's been, and I have more to do. I'm going to be up way late tonight, but it's not about me. I mean, it's about my guest, who I just met, and I'm really excited to be talking to this guy. Seems really cool. But first, let me talk about myself, okay? We all like to do it, whether you want to admit it or not. We all need to do it, was the more important part when you're promoting yourself. So let's talk about my comic book, Phenomenova. Check it out. So I just decided to add these captions here today. The name on the names and the caption. I wanted this comic is like a blend of everything I love. Really my love letter to superhero genre. It's an idea I've had ever since I was a little kid. And, I like that those old comics, I'm not saying they never have it anymore, but they used to have these larger than life, captions. And so I just thought of this caption, within these pages, witness the birth of a new phenomenon. And then I decided to include it. I also like the modern convention of having the names on the cover, because especially when I'm going to a convention and I have to, okay, who worked on this interview? I don't feel like taking it out of the plastic. So I open it and, I don't even open it. I'd have to go on Comic Vine and find out, all right, who did this? Oh, I can get it signed by this person. I like when some of the names are just on the cover. Now, obviously not all the names. More than 3 people have worked on this book. But yeah, anyway, too much of that. Let's talk about the book itself, shall we? So Phenomenova is going to be 64 pages of story, 68 pages total, and follows this teenage boy named Miles Hanksley, who was struck by lightning while holding this mysterious crystal and finds himself awakening with lightning powers and super speed. He's the son of a war hero who grew up idolizing some of the superheroes that fought in the war, some of them pictured here. And he tries to, take those ideals and make them his own. And he's inspired and he strikes out on his own in a crappy makeshift costume, but finds himself running into a mysterious villain that is way out of his league when he tries to intervene at a heist at a nuclear reactor on his first mission. This is really harkening back to all the superhero comics I love. In an age of constant cynicism and deconstruction, I wanted this to be an optimistic story with reconstruction and a reconstitution of the ideals that make this genre great. It is going to be launching soon. I think at the beginning of next month. I having to push the date back, but it is mostly done. In fact, I just got page 38 today with 39 currently on the way. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead, sign up. And that art that I just showed off right there, that is an exclusive free trading card. So you're not going to want to miss out on that. Anyway, guys, the link will be in the description. It should be in the chat. If not, I messed up. All right, I'll put it in the chat. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, you've heard enough about me. Let's hear about our guest of honor, Kris Faction. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good, man. Doing good. Making comics, reading comics, not reading comics as much as I'd like.
Talking about how much I read comics more than reading comics. That's been me since I started working on the damn things. When I was in college, man, I would read so many comics. I plowed through Claremont. Like when I didn't realize how much I was reading until you look back at it in a volume. You're like,
oh yeah.
Shit. It's almost like ignorance really does sometimes propel you to do the most work, I find. Even when it comes to creation. Like if I had been told how much shit I had to do to make a comic, that it wasn't just you write it and then it's tell an artist, would I have done it? I mean, probably. But I would have had more hesitations, and I'm glad I didn't, because it's almost like I'm this deep in. Let me just keep wading through.
Yeah.
And
I do feel the same way in a certain sense. Like when I finally decided to make this book, I had a lot of friends and family that were like, yeah, it took you long enough. You've been talking about this story forever. Why hadn't you done it before? And I was like, oh yeah, like, but also on top of that, like, I I do wish I had learned a little bit more before I got started. I mean, not too
Tell me about
much,
it.
but just a little bit more. But now, I'm like, okay, I got this. You just got to stay on it.
Yeah, well, one of the things that inspires me is and I can't wait to get my whatever new edition he's doing is Billy Tucci would tell me like I'm like cuz I need to know all this and it's like he literally had no idea what he was doing. He just made sheet and look at what he was just making up
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
as you go. Like every time I'm getting to a new phase, like I'm like, okay, great. Getting ready to print. Now I need to find a printer. What the hell does that mean? What? There are 5 different kinds of there's digital and offset. I have to now figure out all this. What does paper with? I get and one thing I will say is it enforces your love of the medium, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like taking crowdfunded books off the shelf or like I'm like, okay, what was the last Ronin? I like the feel of this paper. I don't know if you read that. I'm like, okay, here's Fiendish, here's what Graham Nolan did. And or you're looking at things and you're like, okay, saddle stitched versus up saddle stitch doesn't work with this page count. You learn all these things and it kind of makes you go, how did they do it? And learning how they do it kind of makes me appreciate the medium more.
It is really cool because like especially when you're looking at something like printing, you start digging into the history of how these books got made, like say in the 30s,
Mhm.
and then so on, and how it progressed, and printing technology, which all of that isn't, it's not like printing technology advanced just because of comic books, but comic books definitely did push printing technology to evolve. Uh,
Oh,
you
I
know,
didn't know. Sorry, I didn't mean
so,
to interrupt you.
oh
I
no,
was
no,
saying
no,
I didn't
you're
know that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Because the thing is like you're dealing with a medium, with books, it's just words on paper, and maybe like say something like Tolkien, where there was some illustration in there, but you know, OG, like first edition Hobbit, none of that was colored or anything. So comics, it was, hey, how can we print this and not lose the natural colors that we've put in there, and and things like that. And I think that it did help push printing, in a way.
Yeah, no, I mean that's so interesting to hear that. Because I'm looking at stuff, right? Like from especially when I'm coming to like make my own and as I'm looking at modern and classic, looking even at coloring. I mean, coloring is the most obvious, example. I mean, you can look at papers too. Like back in the day was this. It's also hard because I didn't grow up with the newsstand stuff. So basically every comic I know is in crappy condition
Mhm.
that's aged 30 years or whatever. I don't really know a version like that. Although I will say the one that's in the best condition. Um, I've learned that there's certain comics that I just kind of always have on hand because I don't bother to put it away because I mention it so much.
Mhm.
This one is like in decent condition. Better been for the price I paid for it. But I find that stuff so interesting. There's just so much that goes into the comic book medium, and it's a medium that I think is kind of looked down on by like even to this day by everyone,
Oh,
including I'd argue a lot of the creators and publishers. You know,
no, I totally agree. I think to the layman, the non comic book person, they still look at it as, oh, that's stuff for kids, you
oh
know
my god, yep.
when it literally has been an all ages type medium since its inception. I mean, honestly, like, you go back to the 20s and 30s, it was all horror. And now
Mm,
the messages that were in there were like, more wholesome,
you're right.
like, don't don't do this or you're going to end up eaten by the monster
Yes.
type thing, which is where you want to be, really, if you want to attract all ages, because I mean, all people love to hear stories. It's just what medium is the story gonna get to you,
Yeah, sorry, I got to get better at acknowledging that I've been yelled at before this. I can take criticism, guys. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I agree with that too. I think context is something that's often missing, right? Is people talk about I think when people are like, "Oh, kids shouldn't be exposed to scary stuff." Like funny enough, I was just interviewing the cover artist of the Goosebumps books, right? Kids need to be scared. First of all, kids like the thrill. They don't want to admit that they like being scared, but they like being scared. Except for the ones that do, but people, I think that there needs to be natural guardrails, and often you have to enforce those through stories. I think the morals, I'm not saying you have to preach to an audience, but I think most people in general, whether they mean to or not, if you've thought about your story in any deep capacity, you have a message you want to send, whether you mean to or not.
Yep. Go back to Grimm's fairy tales. Like what the Brothers Grimm were doing was they were traveling around getting these, local stories,
Right.
all over Europe. And those stories were told to children. And if you read the real Grimm's fairy tales, not the Disney-fied, stuff they've done over the last 100 years, they're scary. A lot of them do not have good endings. And the whole point was take for instance, Little Red Riding Hood.
Okay.
Watch your back when you're walking alone to grandma's house. Don't go out into the woods by yourself. It was supposed to be these mental guardrails that you gave your children of, hey, there are bad things out there in the dark.
Right.
And they can take the form of an animal, a person, a group of people, whatever. And it's literally saying you should have a solid moral compass, and the discipline to not run out into the dark, into the woods, because kids are kids. I mean, I was a kid. I was a kid in the in the 80s and 90s when you could run out into the woods in the dark.
Yeah, kids need to be scared, or they'll be dead, right? People need. It's the same reason why I remember actually it was in a class I actually kind of enjoyed. It was a lot of reading though. May have used some chapter summaries, but it was a lot of reading on religious texts, and I really should go back and pour through some of it. But my to-reading list is already. But it was talking about philosophies of religion, and there was this guy my professor, he was Muslim his whole life, and he was like, it wasn't until I had a kid that I understood why God has these restrictions. I'm not getting philosophical. I'm just, as an anecdote to this, he was like, it wasn't until that I understood why God threatens us so much. It's because they're like, don't do this. Don't do this. It's because you want what's best for your kids. And that was such an interesting way as a not super religious guy to hear all that and go, okay. It's the same reason why when I'm mad about something in entertainment, people are like, oh, it's toxic fans. It's like, no, it's me going, don't do that to Luke Skywalker.
Right.
It's my Luke. It's because you love it, right?
Well, Jesus had more sermons about hell than he did heaven, because the thing, yes. If you go and read his teachings, he talks a lot more about hell than he does heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we have to understand that there are consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't understand what those consequences are, in anything, I mean, driving to work every day, you need to understand, you got to drive on the right side of the road. I mean, as simple as that sounds for, people that drive every day, I drive for a living, and I see people that just, you're like, oh my gosh, you probably don't need to be behind the wheel of a car. Somebody needs to smack you across the face and be like, yo, you're putting yourself in danger, what are the consequences? And the unfortunate thing is people that don't learn that there are consequences through, learning the easy way through listening to authorities, be your parents or, whatever, or reading stories that, tell about consequences of bad actions and all that. Then they got to learn the hard way. And when people learn the hard way, the government ends up making a law, and then you're like, ah, crap.
It's the same. Yeah, you realize why and this is the thing. I mean, I think we do that to ourselves too, right? I have messed up so many times and will continue to mess up so many times. I'm trying. Now, the key is to make sure my mess ups don't go to my paying customers, right? If I take all of the mess ups and deliver a good product, that's fine. But you have to mess up in life to be good at anything. And because I'm learning everything, it means I'm messing up everything. So it feels like all this, and it is refreshing when I get online. People go, Vaughn, you're killing it. I'm like, well, I guess I only post like I don't post when I'm like, I had a spelling error in my script, or that's a mild thing. But you don't post that.
I'll tell you a funny story. Back when I was still doing music, and I was a tour manager, and my ex-wife and I had only been married for, I think, 3 years, somewhere around there. So, like not too long. And I got an opportunity to go on tour. And I was like, listen, like, I know, you don't really know what this life is like, because I hadn't done it since you and I have been together or whatever. And she's like, no. It's an opportunity that I don't think you should pass up. You should definitely go back out on the road. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, just remember, like, I mean, we have a toddler at home. Like, it means I'm not going to be here or whatever. And she's like, no. I think you really need to take this opportunity.
Wow.
And so I go out on the road, and, like a few days in, this is in the MySpace days. So like, all the bands are posting the photos of every show on MySpace, and like, you don't post the photos of you not getting any sleep or like
your empty wallet.
Yeah, exactly. And so she starts getting kind of irritated, and by the time I came back, she was like, you were out partying the whole time, and I was having to play almost single mom and everything. And I was like, no, I was not partying all the time. I get it. You're seeing the pictures. So next year comes around, and we're going to do the tour again. And I told her, I was like, hey, look, you got a lot of time off saved up. Why don't you take some time off and come on the road with me? We'll take our daughter to the grandparents, and cool. She made it 3 days.
Wow.
And she was like, I don't know how you do this. How do you, when do you sleep? When do you, like, what? Like, I've never worked this many hours in my life, and it was that kind of sobering reality of what you see online as opposed to what's actually happening in real life.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've had that happen where, like, I've messaged an artist and like, why aren't they getting back? And it's like, probably because they have a real life and you only see them through. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You don't realize or people I remember have also, like, sometimes you don't realize that just how much is going on in someone's life. And it's just crazy. But, there is a good side to it, though. You want, because it's almost like, I remember one day I was like, dude, I haven't accomplished anything today. And they're like, walk me through your day. And I was walking through the day, and I'm realizing, I'm like counting off all the things that I'm like, okay, I guess I did accomplish a lot today. They're like, yeah. Sometimes, but we need that. We need that kind of push. And so this has been a fun conversation. We haven't even gotten to anything yet. And we just met, by the way, Kris.
Yeah, we did. We
literally
had like
just
3 minutes before we went live, and just
I was like, I know this is going to be a good show. So, so you did. I guess let me walk you through that, because I noticed you sent the picture. You did music.
Yeah. So I started playing music when I was like 14, 15 years old. Got into my first band when I was 17, I think. And that was in the late 90s. Had a blast. Played in a local punk rock scene. Just like, I mean, it was just fun all the time. And then my last band, we called it quits in 2020 because, I mean, honestly, it was 2020 was just too crazy. There was no way you could play live,
So this is recent then. The whole band thing.
My most previous band, yeah. But we did release a music video that year.
Awesome.
And we released an album on Election Day in 2020. But I'm not too happy with the finished product.
Oh, okay.
The mix was just kind of like it should have been way better. But the thing is like, as 2020 was so crazy, it was like, yeah, I don't know if we want to spend that money on, getting a good mix whenever, like, getting a phenomenal mix, spend all that money to do that, and then the band can't continue on, because there's nowhere to play.
Yeah. Now that's so. What are your band's names, or are you in a different band now?
Yeah, I'm not playing now.
Okay.
Yeah, my most previous band was After the Fact.
Okay.
Or ATF. You can actually look up on YouTube, type in After the Fact Narcissistic Rage, and that's our music video that we released in 2020.
Yeah. There we go.
And yeah. It's, I mean, a lot of fun. Whole lot of fun. Yep.
That's really all right. I'm gonna boom. There you go. It's subbed. All right, I'm gonna listen. I'll give that a listen. Keeping that tab open. My tabs. If you want to look at my mindset, I have notes and tabs. And the hell is that? Oh, that's another note about it. Jimmy Palmiotti was like, "You should get this camera." I'm like, "Okay," and then I just kind of threw the note down there. But I do listen to people when they come on my show. So you were in a band, but obviously you're doing comics now too. It's always interesting too, because I think one of the things in this live stream stuff is I spend like an hour talking about my comic or whatever, or likewise whoever I'm doing. But we forget that it's no one. If you're in the arts, it's never you're just into one thing, right?
Yeah, if you have a creative mind, like I tell people that the curse of being a musician is having 3 songs playing in your head at the same time. If you have a creative mind, you can't turn it off. And if you can only redirect it.
Yes.
And so,
once it's a constant battle.
Yeah. Once I was at the point that I said, hey, music really isn't a viable outlet for me. Like, I still jam,
right.
but as far as like doing it, playing shows and stuff, I'm like, okay, that's not viable anymore. I have to turn my focus to something else. And I'm also a pretty big gun enthusiast, so like I love working on guns, and like I wouldn't call myself a gunsmith, but I've built 4 AR-15s, so like enough. I know enough, and that's kind of a keep my hands busy hobby or whatever. But really, like I like writing, Previously it was in music, and now it's in comics, and I've had this story in my head for so long that it was like, well, am I actually going to do something about it, or just sit here and think about it forever?
Oh, that's me and my other 10 ideas. You think Phenomenova is my only idea? First of all, even within Phenomenova, this isn't my only idea.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even with Nano 13, I'm like only my artist actually, well, and some of my friends and family, but only my artist knows the extent of how big this thing actually is, and he's like, oh my gosh, like we have to get people to back this, because they have to know, and I'm like, okay, sweet, I like the enthusiasm.
Yeah, all right, that's good. So tell them there's that balance between telling people because everyone almost always pitches, myself included. I have plans for a greater universe and greater story. Okay, my whole thing is selling issue 1. Like my comic is called Phenomenova, and people are like, "Why? My main character is that." I'm like, "No, my main character is Galvanite." And like, "Well, why is it called that?" I'm like, "Because it's a team." Well, where's the team? Well, they're going to be in a later issue. You have to learn to sell them on issue 1. And that's why, like, I remember I was doing my definitive Daredevil reading order, and someone was arguing you should start with his first published work. I was like, absolutely not. You start with Daredevil, Man Without Fear, because you want the story that's going to keep them there and coming back. Because let's be honest, Frank Miller's first of all, his first Daredevil work wasn't his writing. Technically, it wasn't even Daredevil. It was Spider-Man issues. But it's like that first Frank Miller Daredevil issue is like not that memorable, if I'm being honest. Maybe this is blasphemy, but I don't know.
I get that.
You know, you want to sell that one story, and it sounds really interesting. So now that I'm learning, before I get into what this book is about, wow, this has been fun just talking 25 minutes, and we're just it's you never know how these interviews are going to go. I kind of like that, actually. I like the, you know, I was talking to the Goosebumps cover artist. I'm thinking I'm going to be talking about Goosebumps the whole time, and towards the end I was rushing because I was like, oh my god, we got to do it, because I spent 45 minutes just talking about his life, and I enjoyed every second. Anyway, back to you. So what got you into writing, or more, what got you into comics and all that?
I grew up in the era where they were on the newsstands, you know. I mean, pretty much like my mom would go grocery shopping, and, you know, once, like, it's so funny saying this now, because nowadays the thought of just letting your kid loose on the magazine aisle while you go grocery shopping, you know, is like, oh my gosh, call CPS on that person. But back then it was that was what happened, you know, like mom's going grocery shopping. You knew, like, don't get in trouble or else you were going to get it when you got home. So I would sit there and read comics, you know, like just sitting there on the dirty floor, like, you know, like a little gremlin going through the books, you know. And the thing is it wasn't like nowadays, you know, if some kid was, you know, sitting on the magazine aisle, like thumbing through everything, they'd be like, hey, are you gonna buy that? Like back then that wasn't the case. Like they got, you know, they understood or whatever. And yeah, so, you know, I was just like intrigued, you know, as like really young, you know, at just like, oh, hey, it's a cartoon, you know, almost. But then when you get in the 90s and I start getting into my like formative years, so many great stories came out during that time. Like, I mean, you had you know, Death of Superman, Age of Apocalypse, Nightfall, Chuck
all
Dixon's run on Robin, you know, like, I mean, holy crap. It was just like one hit after another, you know, and it was, I mean, I do feel a little sorry for the younger generation not feeling that excitement of next month I'm going to find out what happens in Nightfall. You know, cuz when you were reading it as it was coming out, it was insanity, and it was every kid at school was talking about it.
Wow.
You know, like,
it sounds like
it
a
was
magic time.
it was. It really, really was, you know. And this is also, you know, it was like in the 90s, a lot of people say it was the last decade, and I pretty much agree, like that, you know, definitive 90s thing. You know, and there was still that like, oh, you read comics, like what a nerd, you know. And like you didn't care. It was like, me and my friends sitting around, like, you know, because everybody has different economic backgrounds or whatever. So most of the time at school, like one kid would have a copy of an issue, and we would all sit around and like read it together. You know, like, oh man, at lunch, dude, dude, Jeremy has the newest issue of freaking Death of Superman. Like, dude, we got to freaking, you know, we all got to sit at the same table and check it out, you know, and it's being passed around. And yeah, it was so much fun. So much fun.
That sounds like a fantasy world to me, man. I you know, it's funny. I never really read new comics much, and apparently I missed one of the best Batman runs of all time, Scott Snyder's. But when I was first getting into comics when the New 52 came out. I apologize to everyone in the audience who's heard this a million times. And it was weird because I had been into the superhero movies and stuff. Because comics just don't advertise comics, you know? I had to seek them out eventually because I was like, I want to know where all this comes from. And it was weird because it was like they were deciding, you know, all that stuff that everything was based on. Yeah, we're kind of throwing that out and starting new. And I remember for a lot of, and that was a weird mix of, like, there was some New 52 stuff I read, but there was also, I was like, so it's all gone? Like, what? I'm reading Justice League. I'm just learning about Martian Manhunter. I mean, I watched the show when I was little, but I was like, what? Cyborg's a Teen Titan. Even I know that. And I don't read comics. Why is he?
Yeah,
and I'm not. Here's the thing you got to understand is because I've talked about this. I'm not upset with the fact that they made Cyborg a Teen Titan or Justice League member. My issue is I think the way they went about it was so awful because what they did was they removed his history as a Teen Titan.
Yes.
And they removed Martian Manhunter's history as not only a Justice League member, a founding member.
Yep.
If they had just said Martian Manhunter is going to go off and do this, and Cyborg is graduating from Teen Titans to Justice League, fine. I mean, maybe at least more fine, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
That's why when it came to the New 52, I mostly stuck to Jonah Hex. Because I was just like, all right, it's just Jonah Hex.
Didn't they call it a different title too? Didn't they call
it was like DC Western, I think.
Yeah. I had actually, it's funny you mentioned that. We've gone full circle because I have now had both of those writers on my show. My first episode of Vaughn Coleman Presents was I should reach it. It's been a while since Justin deleted his Instagram, but I used to talk to Justin Gray all the time. Actually, I'm going to make an appreciation post soon for people that have helped me out. He was the first guy to give me feedback, but it was Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti. I have now had both of them on. They're great. I haven't read Jonah Hex yet, but my understanding is from both of them that it was very new reader friendly.
Yes, it was. Like I had been a fan of Jonah Hex, but I couldn't say that I knew Jonah Hex like definitively, you know, at that point when New 52 was coming out. And I really appreciated the world building that they did in that story, because so much of it takes place in Gotham City, but this is
I didn't know. Oh,
yeah, it's
that's
Gotham
right.
City.
I forgot because the animated series. Holy shit! I totally forgot because I keep picturing it as a Western. It's not Western.
No, it is, but it's in Gotham in the 1880s.
But isn't Gotham City in New Jersey, my beautiful home state? That, you know, we were given the worst fictional city ever. Pretty sure Gotham is New York City.
I mean, sure, you know, but I mean, it's comics. Like, it just kind of, you know,
Accept
it is what it is.
That's fine.
Yeah. You
I didn't know that, though. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't know that.
No, it's really neat because you see the Wayne family and the Cobblepots and you know all these people that will birth heroes to come and villains to come and things like that, you know. And it's and Arkham is one of the main characters, you know, but it's before he goes to the asylum. And
so did no one immigrate from this? However many years.
That's kind of what I was like. Oh, so just everybody's been here the whole time.
Really, huh? No one even when the city started getting shittier and shittier, they were like, "We're sticking here. We've been here for so long. We're not moving." I respect it.
Right.
Respect it.
Yeah, it was totally like I really enjoyed New 52 Jonah Hex. You know, there might be some people out there that say nah, but you know what? I don't care. I like what I like.
That's dope, man. Yeah, I mean, Jonah Hex is something I'll have to check out. But what did you? Because you said you didn't really grow up with that. But that's what were you? So what did you? You mentioned you started with comics, but what were your favorite comics?
I was really big X-Men fan in the 90s.
There we
go.
Know,
I think every teenage boy that was into comics was into X-Men because there was so much to it. Mm-hmm. You know, you had this plethora of characters, you know, and you wanted to know more about them. The stories were exciting. And especially like around that era of like Age of Apocalypse when things got really, really crazy, and then at the end of Age of Apocalypse when everything is kind of solved, but there's like these little reverberations, like Gray Beast, it ends up in the 616 world or whatever, and things like that. It was just the art was freaking awesome,
Oh yeah, I
you
just
know.
got to '90s X-Men. I got to finish Claremont's run, but
Yeah. And the stories were so, I mean, they were like gripping, you were like, oh wow. And I think, that was where Marvel started to make their first mistakes, there, because the fame of the X-Men, not just from the comics, but also the animated series, they were like, how can we duplicate this? And the next thing you know, you have 9,000 X titles, and it's like, I'm 14. I can't afford this.
yeah, well, it's crazy because I've been reading Claremont's run, and it went from the occasional team up issue and Uncanny X-Men to I am currently reading. I have a crazy reading order that I follow, but I'm currently like it goes from like X-Men, okay, X-Men New Mutants, okay, I can do that, and the occasional annual,
Yeah.
okay. Now we got X Factor, okay, that's I skipped Dazzler and Alpha Flight to be fair, so technically I should have been reading more. Alpha Flight I should read. I haven't heard anyone tell me, dude, you skipped Dazzler. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I haven't had anyone tell me it's essential reading.
Yeah, no.
And then it's like, okay, then Wolverine and Excalibur both come out like within the same year. I think within the same couple months. I'm like, maybe in the same month. I don't know. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm at 5 books that I'm balancing between.
Yeah.
And it's like learning the order I should read them in. I actually have like I have a document where if they order I'm following is wrong, I will say, no, it told me to read it in this order. Here's why it's wrong. Like example, it told me to read this Excalibur storyline with the Von Struckers before a Magic War Nights. And then you read Magic War Nights after, and I'm like, no, Magic War Nights should be before. That's the last issue I read, by the way, Magic War Nights. So while you guys had to wait years, like 30 years to follow up, I waited like an hour.
Yeah.
I made a video on it because I read it. I was like, oh, Magic War Nights. I'm right there in my run. Okay. Magic War Nights is my next issue. I read it. I understand what the hype is about. Because I was always like, who cares? Like, it was Captain America, Black Widow, and Wolverine meet. Okay, like I'm not saying that was bad, but I was just kind of like Captain America and Wolverine have met like what 5 times now.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, right. Like
the cover is very misleading. And you know what's funny? I mentioned this in my video. The cover is still misleading because still at the end of the first issue of the new Magic War Nights, they're still not together in those costumes.
Oh yeah.
So because they're like, oh, they're all together at the same time, and then you read the issue and they're not. Because it's like Black Widow was a little kid, Captain America was this, Wolverine was in a different outfit. Now Wolverine in the present is like Patch, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's still a great issue, man. Yeah, 90s I'm getting into. It's weird. I was like hesitant because I'm like, all right, well, first of all, I'm gonna take a break after Claremont. But Mark Polton was like, dude, you have to read Scott Lobdell's stuff. He's my favorite writer. He's my biggest inspiration. And I'm like, fine, because I do respect Mark Polton. So I'm like, all right, Mark, fine. And then I was reading, and there was an in-between issue of Excalibur between, because I always, honestly, even though I hadn't read any of his stuff, I was always just like, oh, he's the guy riding off Claremont's coattails. And then there was an in-between issue. There was just a one-shot issue of Excalibur where it's Nightcrawler on an island. I don't know if you've read it. It's 31. And I was like, holy shit, that is one of the best issues of the run. And it was just a fill-in issue and I'm like, no wonder they gave this guy the reins. They were like, here you go. We trust you. You earned it. But yeah, that's such an interesting thing. So 90s X-Men, it sounds like it gets here. Because I was going to drop off after 91, maybe read Age of Apocalypse. But you're suggesting... I'm not reading all 14 titles across the decade.
Yeah,
There's no way.
Yeah,
There's no way.
I think like definitely read Age of Apocalypse. I like the introduction of Generation X, but then after that kind of fell off. It was too, and it might have just been my age, like because I was getting older, at that point, and it might have just been like, oh, this is too kiddie for me,
No, is that it?
But yeah, like Age of Apocalypse is a must.
That's dope. So we are all this time in, but before I get into what your comic is about, I'm sorry it's taken so long.
Oh,
You know
you're
what? It's
good.
fun. Who's your favorite X-Man?
Oh man, um, I would say back in the day, I absolutely loved Angel, and then the transition to Archangel,
Yeah.
and then the transition back
Oh,
to
transition
Angel
back.
again. Yeah, like when his feathers or his wings grew back under the metal wings, and that
Ooh,
whole
that
scene
sounds
where
very
like they
90s.
break out, and that was so dope. And he was such an interesting character too, because he's this rich kid, you know,
Yep.
and but he's like under the thumb of his dad, who's this mutant hating bastard,
Yeah.
and he has to wrestle with that a lot, because he's like, I have the means to do anything I want, but like my dad controls everything, so it was like, he had a whole lot of depth to him. I would say him and Nightcrawler. I love Nightcrawler's dichotomy of, I look like a demon and I'm more Catholic than Daredevil.
Yes. I
And
love
how
that.
like that caused so many issues, and like the times when he would get plagued by Mephisto, and like
Was
have
that in
like,
the 90s?
yeah. I want to say like 90s and maybe a little bit in the early 2000s, where
Okay.
Mephisto would just like, look at you, you're a demon. Obviously, you're on the wrong side of things, like God made you. If God made you, then why did he make you like that? You actually look like, whatever. And yeah, I love that whole back and forth, because, like, in order to write Nightcrawler, you have to understand Nightcrawler's strength in his faith, and
Mhm.
then also understand the struggle that comes with that because of who he is.
Yes.
And so he is a very, I imagine he's a very difficult character. Like, I say difficult, you know, like if you know how to write him, you know how to write him. But
Mhm.
like you have to put a lot of thought into writing Nightcrawler.
I'm in agreement with you. I think Nightcrawler, again, that issue. Have you read that Excalibur issue then that I talked about? Excalibur 31.
I probably have, and it's probably been 20 years since
All
I
right.
have.
So it's when yeah, I forgot it's been like maybe like a month. Yeah, maybe two. With the way time is flying. Because I was like, oh, I got plenty of time to launch my campaign, and now it is the 19th and it's night. I don't know where the time is. But I Nightcrawler, that issue, it's like a spore from Krakoa births an island, and Nightcrawler is trapped on the island.
Oh yeah.
First Skull Abdel. I don't know if it's the first X-Men. It's the first X-Men anything I've read from him, but it might be the first. It's definitely the first Excalibur issue he wrote. So good, so good. But Nightcrawler, I'd say for my, you know what? I have an idea. I should just do more. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with my content, but I should do more videos just talking about stuff I love. And one of the things I love is I'd love to do a video where I get some people and we just talk about our favorite X-Men characters and why.
Yeah.
Which is going to make me want to read X-Men, which is going to drag away from my to read. Well, it's part of my to read. But my favorites are probably, and I've been told these are not, depending on who you ask, these aren't great picks. I disagree. Well, of course I disagree. It's my list. You know what I should do? I should start a thread of everyone doing their top 10 X-Men characters. My favorites, I'm going to say Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Shadowcat are probably my top three. Then I'm going to put Havoc on there, Wolverine, Archangel. Now it's not in any specific order. Storm, I guess I put Rogue. I'd have to figure out the rest, but Archangel, for the reasons you mentioned, dude. Archangel. I'm glad to see a fellow Angel Archangel appreciator. I liked Angel actually from the beginning, even when I was little, and they had that scene in Last Stand, which was I don't know if you know this, but like the Last Stand has that one really good scene where Angel. It's not a great movie, but he has a good scene where he's shaving his wings.
Oh yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a rejected scene from the first X-Men movie, which is why it's good. but that, Angel was Angel. I liked him. He's the guy. He's one of the things I like about him. He's the guy that has everything, right? So he's got that hot chick. Candy Southern was hot, dude. The way the artist drew her, they gave him the name too. Then you had he had the hot girlfriend. He had the angel wings. He was very good looking. He had money, and he was still nice to everybody. And then the Simonsons destroyed everything he had. And I asked Louise Simonson, I was like, "Why did you do that?" And she was like, "Yeah, if you read X Factor, I always tried to like torture my characters, and he just became kind of. I really wanted to give him something to do, so I just destroyed everything. Which makes sense, because there was only so much you could do with that character. You also have to think in mind, because I loved Angel as a character. I liked his personality. I liked the way he interacted with the team. But in a combat situation, I mean, realistically, when you have him on when you had him on the original lineup, it was fine because he was the only guy that could fly.
Yeah.
But okay, put him on a team with Banshee and Storm.
Yeah.
And he's obsolete. Phoenix.
Yeah.
He can fly. Okay, they could fly faster and do other things. You could see well while you're in the air. Wow, dude. Really cool.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I understand. And then when because I was actually afraid of him becoming Archangel because I was like, I like Angel. And when he becomes Archangel and he's this tortured character, there's this one standalone fill-in issue where it's like him in a church, I want to say. It's so good. Like, he is such a good character. And you know what's funny? I'll tell you this. I was hanging out with Billy Tucci at this bar, and Chris Claremont was there. And they were, I was like, Billy, you gotta talk to Chris. He's like, why don't you talk to him? Please make it. So I got them to talk, and then they were talking about, they had a story in the 90s because Billy was known for She. I don't know if I should be telling this story. Fuck it. They didn't care. There was no NDAs when I was, all right, fuck it. So they were going to do a storyline that had Psylocke. Billy was going to draw it. Chris Claremont was going to write it. It was, because Billy's favorite, I didn't know this, his favorite X-Men character is Angel Archangel. And he also was known for She, so drawing Psylocke made sense. I don't know what the story was, but they pitched a story with Psylocke and Archangel, and everyone loved it, and then for some reason they got screwed over and it didn't get made.
So I have to ask you this because you know Billy, and I've never gotten to talk to Billy, but have you read, I want to say it came out in 2000, but I could be wrong, the Wolverine versus She Choose Your Own Endings comic book?
I haven't. You know what's funny, and this is one of the things why I'm not always concerned if I don't get everyone on my sign up, is because I didn't know who the hell he was until I met him in person. It was I was walking by his table, and then I heard him say something, and I was like, oh, I agree with that. And then he starts talking, and then he pitches She. I'm like, that looks good. I think I had seen it on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but I just had it backed. And then now I'm a regular backer and a friend of his because of that. But I didn't know that. I didn't know what She was. So I've the only crossover I've read was She. I want to read all of them.
Yeah.
I hope he does an omnibus. I don't know what the rights issues are going to be with that. I think he said he wants to. I think he's going to. That sounds really cool. But I've read the Witchblade ones, both of them. Or not the Witchblade ones. I'm sorry. Psyblade ones, which is where Witchblade first appeared. But no, I haven't read that yet. The Choose Your Own Adventure. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool just because the whole it's a choose your own adventure. Like, like Wolverine and She are squared up, and and then the fight starts, and then it's like, turn to this page if you like want to see this, you want to go this way, or turn to this page if and it's like, oh, well, this is a blast, you know. And
That sounds
then of course,
awesome.
like you just read all of it.
So you're not going to skip the pages. They tried doing something like that with the New Mutants issue I read once. It was like a dice rolling thing, and it was fine. But see, gimmicks like that, what I like about comics is that they could just try something, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does, it does. I'd like to read that. Listen, I love Billy, but there's no conceivable reality where she would be able to beat Wolverine. No fucking way. No way. I love the guy. He probably slapped me for saying that, but like, it's true. It's true. He's got the ninja training and all those abilities. I'm not saying it's impossible, but probably.
Right.
Like, I'll vote. Listen, I want the pretty girl to win, but like, listen, I don't make the rules. But yeah, that I'll have to check that out. I know I'm reading through Senryaku right now.
Nice.
Where is it? Back there. You can't see it, but my Senryaku's back there, which is a really great read. I'm not sure if you got the omnibus. These omnibuses, he's got to keep making. I told him, I was like, you have to keep this, because I had never read the 90s stuff. Like, I was telling him, I'm like, you have to keep this in circulation forever. It's perfect for new readers. And it looks great on the shelf. That's another big thing. Omnibuses always look great on the shelf. Yeah, so we've talked comics for a while. So what made you finally decide you wanted to write them? Seems like you've been a fan for a long time.
I've had this story kind of going around in my head for the 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously evolved over that time.
Right. As all stories do.
But I got out of the Army in 2016, and that's when I really kind of honed in on like what I wanted this story to be. I mean, my characters are essentially a tactical fire team. They're, kind of like a special forces type unit with tech powers, and my time in the military definitely helped me kind of create that for them, because I think the original iteration, they were like a government experiment or something. And then I was like, nah, that's I don't see that. And then I was like, you know what? Aliens. And then, okay, here we go.
I'm always into alien stuff, dude. Military aliens, you got me hooked.
Yeah.
I'm always into that. I think that stuff's so cool.
Well, and I was, I create the world that they live in is about as dystopian of a world that humans could actually be in. I mean, they're completely enslaved. They're pockets of free people. The main characters, they were all born as slaves, and liberated, and then born as slaves, liberated, captured again, experimented on, and then they end up with powers. And so it's they have like all that tragedy going on inside of them that give them drive. And my villains are evil. Like, you will never sympathize with my villains. I think that that's important.
Right.
Like I don't want to have sympathetic feelings towards Doctor Doom. Damn it, Like I get it. His backstory is pretty freaking tragic, but he made those choices. He could have made better ones. He's evil,
Right.
And my characters, the Zerus, they're evil, and they're gonna stay evil.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think we're in this weird spot where every character has to be sympathetic. And I'm afraid I'm playing the new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that they're going to try and make Sephiroth sympathetic. I hope not, because I was analyzing the original game. I keep putting off making it because I'm busy with this comic stuff. This 49-page video essay, right? And I was analyzing the game, and I'm like, this guy is just irredeemable. And to be fair, I did watch a video that was trying to explain why he's somewhat sympathetic, and I could see the view, but it's like, at the end of the day, you make these choices. It's, I have a villain. I don't want to spoil anything about it. My favorite issue that I've written probably wasn't even by design. You ever have one of those things where you just write something and it just pours out? One of those, it was a later issue, which obviously I want to sell issue 1 first. What was the villain? And I did do a sympathetic backstory, but I did it. I wanted to make sure that I did it in a way where it's clear that no, you make these decisions, you have to face the consequences. There is a choice where there's a point where you become a villain, where you make a choice and you become a villain.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't redeem yourself, but you have to redeem yourself. You have to stop being the villain, right? Like now the problem is if every villain redeems himself, you have no villains.
Right.
Like when I remember when I actually got annoyed because it was like they started having all the cool villains on the Flash TV show redeem themselves, and I'm like, dude, you're running out of villains. Like you might as well kill them off.
Yeah, exactly.
Have enough heroes.
I can understand, like if you were some terrible, Nathaniel Essex experiment, having a redeeming story arc, because you were forced by Mr. Sinister to become, this thing or whatever. But if you're a villain like Doctor Doom or even somebody like Captain Cold. Like
Captain Cold is who I was talking about. Yeah, they made him and Heatwave good guys and Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Like no, like they're bad guys. Leave them be. Let them. Their motivation is literally like I'm a bank robber.
And I want money.
Yeah, and
they show
keep it there.
I don't know if you watched the show. I actually liked the show. I had mixed. There was things that weren't perfect, but I actually did like the show. But they like gaslit me in the beginning of season 2 when they launched Legends Tomorrow, and as soon as they announced Captain Cold and Heatwave were main characters on it, I was like, no, they're gonna drag them away from Flash. It doesn't matter that I'm gonna see more of them because obviously you're gonna see more of your heroes and your villains as you always should. But I was like. And people were like, yes, I want to see more of them. I'm like, no, because they're going to redeem them. And they're such good villains. Every time they would show up, he showed up in maybe like 4 episodes of season 1, 4 of the best episodes, or maybe 5. Because it was like when we teamed up, it was him and Heatwave, and the sister.
I think my favorite Captain Cold episode is the heist.
Which one?
The one where they make Flash come with them to do the heist or whatever, and he like when he has to do the number pad or whatever, he's the Flash, so he's like,
which season was this?
I want to say
because I stopped after season 3. I watched the first episode of season 4.
Yeah, I want to say it was like either 2 or 3. Yeah.
I'm trying
honestly,
to remember
with the CW stuff, I like the first seasons of most not Batwoman.
Oh yeah, I heard that was
fun. but the seasons, the first seasons of the first few shows, they were pretty good. I mean, for take it for what it is. I enjoyed the crossovers, most of the crossovers. I thought like the Earth X crossover was pretty cool. That was a lot of fun. Nazi Earth with
I didn't get there.
Supergirl, like that was pretty fun. And then they did the Elseworlds and what was that? The last big one, the Crisis. Yeah, they did a Crisis.
I didn't get that far. I got really season 4. I found for both Arrow and Flash were points where I was like, I'm kind of.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I don't disagree with you.
Oliver Queen started running for mayor. I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Well, I did not give a damn about their love stories. Like,
oh my god, wait, you're talking about Felicity, right?
Yes, like, I do not care. Like, if you're gonna do so, all of us that read Green Arrow. Know that yes, he's a ladies' man, and his relationship with Black Canary,
who they fucked up, by the way, multiple times.
Yeah, exactly. And that's who that character is, and to make him just head over heels for somebody and so committed that he literally, by the end of the show, he pretty much sacrifices his life for her. And the rest of humanity, but mostly for her. Come on.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And you're like, come on, man. Like, dude, I just want to see Green Arrow do Green Arrow shit. Like, I want, put a boxing glove on an arrow and hit somebody in the face.
Yeah, it was. You know what it wasn't? It was a trend I noticed in media. Shipping, dude. It was because you read older stuff. It really wasn't that big of a thing. It was like it felt like they catered to the fans of this Felicity ship because all the fans were like, he should end up with Felicity, and it felt like that wasn't what the writers were ever going for. And then they just went all in because that's what the fans wanted. But you can tell generally when that happens because the people aren't committed to it. It's kind of like, again, like Final Fantasy VII. If you really analyze the story, it's very obvious that his actual love interest is Tifa from the beginning. And that's not to discredit the other. It's just that's the way the story goes. It's the same thing with like, and I don't know if you know Kayla Comics and Cleve. She and I have debated about, my point is clearly Cyclops and Jean Grey are in game. Her argument is different. Apparently, Claremont's views changed at one point, and now he's full Jean and Wolverine. But I feel like there's some people where it's like just leave it be. To be fair, they fucked up with him with Black Canary from the beginning so badly that it was like I was like, I don't even see how that's Black Canary is an interesting love interest because she's an interesting character on her own. When she's love interest that they turn into a superhero, it just didn't feel. I don't care if the show was building towards it; it didn't feel natural to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the whole point with the Snart thing. It was like I think it might be what you're talking about. Was it the one episode with the dad?
Yes.
Okay. See that episode, I remember feeling gaslit by that episode because they go at the end of the episode, he goes, "It's what I always thought about you, Snart. There's always been good in you, Snart." I'm like, that's not what you thought in season one. In season one, his introduction scene, this guy goes, "I'm out of the high school." He goes, "Well, if you're out, you're out." And he kills him. And then he also does that one scene where Flash trusts him. The last time they saw each other, Flash trusted him and he stabbed him in the back and freed the villains. Mm-hmm. So it's like, no, that's not what you said. It's not what you said at all. It's like you can't gas just because you want to put him on a good guy show. You don't get. It's like with imagine if Trial of Magneto, they were like, "See, we always knew you could be the headmaster." No, you didn't.
Yeah, right.
You were forced into this, but yeah. Let's watch the trailer for this. Sorry, we got so off course, but it's good learning. Well, actually, I do want to ask before I do this: who are your favorite writers?
Claremont for sure, and
my man after my own heart.
Yeah, Claremont. It's so funny because now, like within this space, Mike Barron and Chuck Dixon are, get so much praise. I almost feel like if I'm like, yeah, man, Barron's run on Punisher, like to me, that's the Punisher.
I started reading it because I was watching Mike on streams. I read Circle of Blood first, which wasn't Mike Barron, but where's my Punisher stuff? I have, right here. I got Mike when I met him, I got him to sign this.
Oh, nice.
I've been getting like everyone in here. I got
Beatty. And of course, I grew up reading Chuck Dixon. So, I mean, like Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan have such a huge impact on my childhood, because I mean, like, come on. That was literally like, I mean, in the 90s, if you were into comics, I mean, that was like a big, huge defining moment. That cover of Bane breaking Batman's back is like, that's like, it's so iconic. And to have been there the day, that it came out, it's like, oh man, yeah, of course it has huge influence over my life.
And I think we'd all love to write something where people can talk about it and be like, dude, I was there. And it's easier said than done because you realize it's not as simple as writing it. It's marketing it, promoting it, blah, blah, blah. It's such a pain. But my first work in comics was editing Hunter Ninja Bear by Chuck Dixon. And I remember I'm glad you liked it, man. Yeah, I was so. I remember I had mentioned on the phone to my boss. I'm like, oh yeah, I hear Chuck Dixon does a lot of new stuff. I'm a fan of his work. I need to read all of his. I plan on reading all '90s Batman and Batman related and Robin.
You're gonna have a blast.
I've read some of it. Like I read Vengeance of Bane. I read the first couple issues of Graham's Batman, like the Huntress stuff. Yeah, I know I'm gonna enjoy that. Claremont first, and then the next probably New Teen Titans, and then I'll get to it. I really should just hunker down on that and just build an audience on that. Anyway, you know, and then I remember saying, "Oh, I like Chuck's stuff," and he goes, "Oh yeah, you're gonna be working on Chuck's book." I'm like, and yeah, I've still never met Chuck. He was supposed to be a MegaCon, and then he got sick. And I'm like, no. So there was the Horseman announcement, which I was there for, but he wasn't there for it, which is unfortunate. But so Chuck Dixon, you said Claremont, Mike Barron. Who else?
Yeah. Oh man. At this point, I don't even. Oh well, you know, I mean, like honestly, like Kirby for sure. Kirby and Ditko. You know, like especially Kirby doing the Fourth World stuff was just like, I think it was such a game changer in comics. And yeah, that was way before my time, obviously. But I feel like that just that Fourth World stuff pushed the medium like up, you know, like a decade almost, you know, like if you could put it in terms like that, because he was, I mean, that was pretty edgy at the time, you know, because it was still comics, it was still meant for all ages, but it was touching on darker themes, you know, and than what people were used to at that time period in comics.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's that's another one. It's already on my long reading list. I'm gonna make a shorter reading list within reading list within reading list, but I do intend on reading all of the Fourth World. I'm gonna get screamed at, rightfully so. I have never read, I don't think I've ever read a Jack Kirby comic yet. I know.
Oh, you're in for a treat though. You really are.
I heard that. So you think his Fourth World is his best? Because I know that's his writing.
Yeah. Me personally, I think it's for Fourth World. It's my favorite, you know, for sure.
I heard that the first 100 issues of Fantastic Four or how long was their initial run? That is one of the best.
Yeah, I think it's like 100. Yeah. I mean that too, like for sure. You know, because the thing is like Marvel is defining itself through Fantastic Four during that time period.
Right. Which is weird to think about, because when I grew up, they were always like another team.
Yeah.
It's really weird to think about it that way, because I know how important they were in the past. But it must be weird for you guys to see them on the back burner so much.
It really is, because, you know, I mean, honestly, like I would say my first experience with Fantastic Four was watching the cartoon from was that 1968, I think, you know, because when I was a kid, like you know, all the cartoons from back in the day were syndicated. They were, you know, they would play on, you know, whatever, you know, like you'd have after school cartoons and stuff like that. And so I watched a lot of those 1960s era, you know, Spider-Man, and there was Captain America and all that, you know. And so my first experience with the Fantastic Four was that. And then, you know, I didn't get into reading Fantastic Four until I was in my 20s, you know, because I just thought, like, I don't know if it's going to be, you know, I like these stories about the Fantastic Four, but I don't know if I want to like read Fantastic Four. And then I discovered that I was wrong for thinking that, because the Fantastic Four is a blast.
Yeah, it's one I'll have to check out. The last story I read with them had it was weird. I think I'm just catching them during weird times, because it's like there's the she thing, and I'm like, this is stupid. But you know, listen, there's always been weird moments in comic history with characters. You just got to move on to them. Like, how long was Storm without powers? Like, that was weird, but it worked. I want to go ahead and watch this trailer now that we've talked about that for so long and beating around it for like an hour, which I did not expect, but I'm happy to be talking anyway.
Heck yeah.
Awesome, man. That looks great. I like the metal, the changing colors in the metal. You could see your music background in that trailer.
Yes.
Really.
Mr. Good Stuff did the trailer. Order the Fly provided the music, and I've been friends with Order the Fly for like 15 years, and that song is called New Machine, and it's off their newest album, Desolation Park. And I was like, this is it. This is the one I want for this book.
Who are your favorite musicians? Well, I won't spend too much time on this. I feel like this is not going to be the first stream we'll ever do.
But, yeah, right. Favorite musicians. So I am a Misfits fanatic. I love the Misfits. I love every era of the Misfits. I can't get enough of them. My daughter just walked in here. She's wearing her Misfits sweater right now. We are a Misfits family around here. I took her to see the Misfits original lineup. They call it the original. It's not really the original, but Doyle, Danzig, and Jerry. I took her to see them Halloween before last. So yeah, 2 Halloweens ago. They're like probably one of my biggest musical influences ever. Outside of that, really big Johnny Cash fan. I mean, he set the tone for the music to come. When his early stuff wasn't really country, it was more rockabilly, and that definitely pushed music forward big time. Him and guys like Jerry Lee Lewis. I tell people all the time, like most of the bands that I listen to, nobody's ever heard of. Because I was really big in the horror punk scene for a while. So you can, like, this is a band called the Calibres. 3 brothers out in Arizona. The Blitz Kid, Wednesday 13. Yeah, man, I could rattle off a million bands and you'd be like, what?
That's dope. Yeah, I have to look into a lot of that. Misfits, I don't really know too well, but that's interesting. There's so many bands that I need to get into still.
That's I keep telling Mark Polton, because he and I are both like horror fans.
I had a feeling from Graveyard Shift.
Oh yeah,
I haven't read it yet. I have all 4 volumes up here.
I got to be on his horror panel this last Sunday for the Blob, and that was so much fun because I
haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it's he does every Sunday. He does a horror movie review, and so that was a lot of fun. But,
yeah,
excuse me. And he's the editor on my book.
That's really cool. Yeah, he does a lot of work, man. It's really
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah.
I wrote this down. Consistent, responsible, and all time are apparently the three most important things in entertainment. So I got to learn to do that because it's probably what he's doing. I mean, he's done so many books. I haven't read any of his stuff, but every time I see him, I buy something, and then I'm like, I'll get around to it next time.
Yeah.
3,000 years after. So tell everyone what your book is about.
So yeah, 3,000 years ago, aliens invaded the Earth, enslaved mankind. Now in we'll call it the modern time. It's actually like more like the 2040s. This group of heroes that have gained powers, and they're still trying to figure them out. So they're 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 learning as they go, but they're gonna try to kick the aliens off of their nice little planet. And Nano 13 is a reference to there are 13 nano powered heroes. This story is about the main team, the lead team of 4. You'll see 11 of those characters in this book, and in one capacity or another. And there are 2 that there's a mystery, and I drop little hints in this issue and then future issues until we bring them in.
Gotcha. So we have in issue 1. So these guys are what, a resistance group?
Yeah. So former slaves who've been liberated, and now they have powers. They feel like, okay, now we have a chance to actually take our planet back and fix things. And this is their very first mission since they've gotten powers. So,
nice.
And they're going up against this nice little creep called the Breeder. He is kind of the head scientist in charge of the slave population. Like he's the one that makes sure that humans are bred for the jobs that the aliens want them to do, and he's in charge of making the pairings and stuff like that. And like I said, they're all born slaves in this crazy dystopian world. And you see the chick with the sword right there. Her name is Akari, and if you're a female born as a slave in this world, what do you think that kind of means?
I can get an idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's got a little bit of a vendetta against this Breeder guy, and so that's gonna play out real fun. But yeah, I've got it's a lot of action. Ron Masicki did my art, and he's also done the lettering. And by the way, this book is completely done. That
was going to be my first question. So when are you planning on printing and sending it out?
So it will go to print. I'm having Critical Blast is taking care of the printing.
Oh, nice, good man. I think he's going to be doing mine too.
Yeah, dude, working with RJ is such a blessing. Like, I mean, he takes care of, and he answers every single question.
Yes.
Like he's got the answer right there. But so is when the campaign ends, it's gonna print and get in people's mailboxes like ASAP. I put I put May as the ship date, but we're hoping like last week of April and then like into the first week of May.
Gotcha. That's dope.
Yeah. And then Ron Masicki doing the art, and Jay Brown did my colors. A lot of people know him from G.I. Joe. And he gave me one of the best compliments. Because all he said was, "I love this book for the action." The dude that used to color G.I. Joe says he likes my book for the action.
That's awesome.
To me, that is an extremely high compliment.
And he colored your book?
Yes, he did.
That's very good. And is this the first comic you've ever written?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Nice, dude. That's awesome. And it's already done. Good on you,
Yep.
man. The reason I was gonna have my book completely done, part of the reason I didn't was because I was like, well, at the pace we're going, when I'm doing, because I'm gonna do Fund My Comic and Kickstarter, I was like, well, within those, when I have it where it's like I'll be done within this almost like 2-month window, I'll know that whenever I'm not promoting, I'm working on it. But for you to be done already, I mean, you're making your rounds. That's awesome.
Yeah, this was a personal challenge to me. I did not want to ask people to invest in me unless I was willing to invest in myself first.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why when the campaign went live, we were only there was only 2 pages left to color and like 20 pages left to letter when the campaign went live. And that was really important that I did that, because I'm not saying I'll be able to do that for issue number 2, probably not be able to do that for issue number 2. And that's fine. But for me, it really was like, I need to invest in myself before I go asking others to invest in me. And so I sunk a decent amount of money and and invested into myself. I do suggest, don't buy a house when you're in the middle of making a comic book.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, the thing is, I've been putting basically my life on hold for, I'll get this comic done. But the comic has been nothing but delays. So my life is on hold for my comic to be on hold. Everything's on hold all the time. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to muscle through it. And also, your last name is actually Faction?
No, my last name is Hunter.
Okay. Hunter?
Yeah.
That's a cool name too. Why'd you change it to Faction?
I've been Kris Faction since I was a teenager, because I was in a band called The Faction, and it just stuck.
Hunter is a cool. It's not like it's like some, I don't know, like Eastern European, like or like Sienkiewicz. Like that's a long name, or like I don't know what. Hang on, what's something that's like? Why am I blanking? Krakowski or
Right.
Smirtkiv. I don't know, like something like that. It's either way. It's simple. You and Rob Hunter related?
No, we're not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Rob's a good dude. Rob was also he was on Hunter Ninja Bear too. He was the inker. So
Yep.
It's funny, Mike. The comic I'm working on now, I had pitched to Rob and he gave me some brutal feedback. It was great.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's man, I'm looking forward to those kind of brutal reviews, because I want to get better.
You have an editor?
And yeah, Mark Polton.
Oh, right. We literally just talked about that. I was about to say, because I was like, yeah, no, never mind. I forgot. Yeah, you're logical. Let's see. What does this guy say? 40% Zed. Kris Nahasapimatelian. Wait, Nahasapimapetilon.
Yeah,
Nahasapimapetilon. Okay.
Yeah,
Nahasapimapetilon. See, once you get it, once you say it 5,000 times, it makes sense by the 5,000th time.
Exactly.
First time. 33 days is my favorite number. All right, yeah, I'm definitely gonna want to back this. This book looks kick ass. Sounds kick ass. Did you, when you were going into writing, did you do a lot of rewriting on this book?
No. So what I did initially, I knew that I knew nothing. So I wrote a short 8-page, I did a little bit of research into how to write a comic book script. I did a little 8-page story, and then I got people that were working on their first project or in the middle of fulfilling their first project to take a look at it. I wasn't going to go ask, Billy Tucci to take a look at my very first comic book script I ever wrote.
He says yes to everyone. He's not. You have to realize that he wants to get to it. He means it. Like I said, he said yes. He's like, I'll get to it. And then a couple weeks passed, and I'm like, maybe he would have but I just kind of stopped asking, because I was like, you know what? I know he's busy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Graham Nolan, on the other hand, he'll be like, he'll be very honest. He'll be like, yeah, I just don't have time for that.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
he'll be very,
Yeah.
and he's also super nice. Like, he's super helpful. Those two guys are two of the guys that I talk to for everything. If you
Oh,
want people,
I mean, Graham's even, thrown me, a couple nuggets of advice, here and there. And yeah, it's like, I'm so appreciative of things like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I wrote this little 8-page script and, sent it out to some people. And I say, hey, just critique my script. Let me know, if I'm in the ballpark, if I suck, if I'm, like whatever. And then I listened to the feedback, adjusted, and then I wrote the entire script in about 2 hours. And because it was just one of those things, I already had the story, so it just flowed, you know. And then that's when I was like, okay, I need an editor, and I need the editor to be somebody that has been a pro for a while. That way, they can tell me, give me the direction that I need to have. And that's when I contacted Mark Polton, and he was like, "Yeah, sure." And so yeah, and just like, I mean, getting into his editor's notes, it just, I mean, at the end, he told me, he's like, I think this story is great. It's he said it reminded him of Malibu Comics, X Mutants from the '90s, and I took that as a big compliment. Uh, and yeah, just like kind of, especially like reading his notes helped me learn the craft, just like getting like, oh, this should actually be a full page splash, instead of, 4 panels or whatever, or this would do better as a double page spread, or take this out of here because it actually doesn't further anything at all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm learning on even then, even after editor's notes, you get pages back, and have you ever gotten this thing where you're like, that was redundant. Why did I put that? Maybe it's a dialogue choice where you read it, or even seeing your stuff lettered. I felt was very different
Yes.
because
Yes.
I've had stuff lettered, and I got it back, and I was like,
Yeah.
man, that doesn't
We
look as pretty as I thought it would.
we just finished up, like the final edits on the lettering just a couple of days ago, and and yeah, there were some lines that were changed, because once you see them on the page, you're like, oh, that's too wordy. I can get the point across, saying this instead. And my one of the things that my artist said, he's like, dude, what I like about your writing style is it's not dialogue heavy. The dialogue that's in there is meant to be there. It's not wordy. Um, like, you get to the point and you move on. And I was like, yeah, these are military guys. They ain't got time for talking, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, I and I'm a strong believer in that Romita Senior type thing of the artist is the final storyteller, you know. And
I need to learn that better. I mean, sometimes I get too anal with it,
I
but
I totally understand, being that way. But honestly, Ron and I kind of had this synergy when he read the script and agreed to do the art for it. Like, it was like he understood the world that I was building as much as I did. And I mean, just seeing like that double page spread that's on the campaign, that architecture. The only reference that I gave him for that picture was the gate to the facility. Because like that was the only question he asked me. He was like, what about this gate or whatever? But the rest of it, that was all him, and how it looks like it was built by humans on the outside, but when you get into the interiors, it's very alien. And that's exactly what I wanted.
all right, that sounds really cool. So the aliens. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe in aliens?
Um, I do believe in aliens. I don't think they've ever been here.
Aha. All right. See, I believe both. But we'll save that discussion for another time. That's Pizza Medi territory. Pizza Medi's with me on this one. But
He and I have had that conversation.
oh, have you?
and it was fun.
He's a formidable opponent, I would imagine. I don't know.
He
I've
is.
never debated him on this because I probably just agree with him. But man, this book looks good. Let me ask you a question. What are some of your favorite movies? Because I'm getting some Terminator, even some Days of Future Past. I'm getting a bunch of different things from this.
Yeah. So like my sci-fi influences, I mean, I'm a big sci-fi nerd. I would say some of my bigger influences are, well, you can definitely tell I'm a Star Wars fan in this
Right.
book because some of the dialogue, for sure, like there are things that Star Wars nerds say that you're like, oh yeah, you're a Star Wars nerd. I was a big fan of both iterations of Battlestar Galactica. I like the original. I really like kind of the special effect aspect of it because it was so like brand new for a TV show to have those kind of special effects was a big deal, and I grew up watching it. And then in the remake, that really gritty, like this ship is like old and falling apart, and I like Warren. I'm a big fan of Alien and Aliens. Not so much the third one, but the first two for sure.
I skipped the third one.
Yeah, you're not really missing. I will say the director's cut is immensely better
That's
than
what I've
the
heard.
theatrical, but yeah, take it or leave it. So yeah, I like gritty sci-fi. I'm just big Space Above and Beyond fan in the '90s, even though it only got 13 episodes. Like that, it was fantastic. So yeah, I mean, like that's pretty much where my influences come from. For this story.
Gotcha. Sounds good, man. That sounds really good. Everyone make sure to check out this book. I'm definitely going to want to. Is it only up for 30 more days or is it, are you going to close out?
So it will, I'm deciding whether I'm going to go in demand or if I'm going to jump onto another platform, and I may just do both. I'm like, more than likely it's going to go in demand. I mean,
Gotcha. You're gonna have to. What I learned is you have to. By the way, I know one thing I like about your campaign, because I'm probably gonna have to cut down some of the rewards on mine, is you're keeping it very simple.
Yeah, it's my first book. I didn't want to be complicated because I knew that the problems will arise, and I was like, if I keep it simple, stupid, then whenever those problems do come up, I can fix them fast and I can learn from them. And then in the next campaign, I can add things and know a little bit more about what I'm doing.
Gotcha. Sounds good. That sounds really cool, man. So everyone make sure to check out Nano 1301. And yeah, this book looks awesome. I hope everyone gets a copy. I'm definitely going to consider backing it. It looks great. The one variant, I did a bunch, which might be to my detriment, but I was like, because here's the thing. At first, I was like, yeah, I'll just do like 2 or maybe 3.
Yeah,
and then you
yeah.
realized, okay, each platform makes you do your own. Well, I'm launching on one, so if I do an Indiegogo one, I'll have to do yet another. It was like, I want this artist to do. A lot of it was like, I want this artist to do. Billy Tucci was too busy when I had proposed my initial launch date. Now, had I given him a more accurate time frame, probably could have gotten a cover. But that's a lesson learned for next time. So we'll get if I do issue 2, I will get that. There is a ninja chick who will be in issue 2. She may or may not be in issue 1. So right up Billy's alley, as well as some military stuff. So come to think of it, he would have been a great pick. But whatever, you live and you learn. We got one cover. I like that. That's really cool. And everyone make sure to get this book, man. It looks like it's going to be a really good one.
Yeah, for sure. And oh man, wait till you get to the last page. Then you'll be like, oh, okay, you got get to work on number 2.
All right. I'm excited for it. Guys. 33 backers. We could get more. Let's get more. 33 is my favorite number, so I'm afraid to break it, but I also do want to support you. It's a moral dilemma.
Right.
Wow, it's always how it happens too. We went from we are now at 5 viewers, right? As I'm about to wrap it up. I think I might be on Mr. Burger's channel tonight. Today has been like a whole week's worth of work, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I've had my second coffee, so we're gonna keep going, and tune in. I don't know what my next interview is gonna be. We're gonna figure it out. But subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Seemed to me like people were annoyed by my constant gameplay streams. So I'm going to make a different channel for that. I've learned my lesson. I'm sorry, guys. Because I think every once in a while, I'd also have to keep shutting down the streams because I'd have technical difficulties. So not only do they get one notification, but then after a couple minutes, it'd be like, sorry, upload again, technical difficulties. And I imagine people who maybe just like my comic stuff are like, dude, I'm just not subscribing. I can't take it anymore. It was only like 3 people, but although I don't know, the algorithm tends to screw with people's numbers. Because there was one day I went from like 31 to 34 to 37 to 35, and I'm like, what the hell is like? I'm not doing anything. I had like one interview. Like, what is going on? It's nuts. But anyway, make sure to support this man. Where can everyone find you?
At Kris Faction on Twitter, X, whatever you call it.
I think I'll do a different channel for that, Doug. Sorry. Oh yeah, Twitter. I call it Twitter. Fuck that.
Yeah.
X is a stupid name. I've had this discussion. X is a very dumb name.
Well, that's an Elon thing. He loves. I actually live just 20 miles from a SpaceX facility where they test the rockets, and living here, you get used to your house shaking when those Falcon 17s go off.
Oh wow,
it's pretty wild.
That's dope, man.
Yep.
Yes, everyone make sure to sign up for this man, and or sign up, not sign up. I'm so used to saying sign up. Back him. Jesus, Vaughn, wake up. Follow him, support him, help me. Apparently, a link is in the description. Link is also in the chat. And if you haven't already and you're new here, subscribe to my channel for more interviews like this. I'm also going to be doing all kinds of video content. I have a million ideas. I need to commit to one. Sign up for my comic book, which is the trailer is going to be playing right now. So make sure to do that. It is launching very soon. And thank you guys for tuning in to yet another great episode of Vaughn Coleman Presents. I will see you next time.
When the whole world was dragged into World War III, brave men like my father fought on the front lines. And they weren't alone. That was 20 years ago. Now it's up to us to carry on their legacy. And every so often, the earth from which we come gives way for something new, something greater to be born. And with them, even greater threats to face. Bring it on! Phenomenal. For you, Dad. For you.